I read 90 books in 2024. If you saw my last video, it was a close call. It did not seem that I was gonna complete my reading goal, but I did at the very last second, literally the night of December 31st. So welcome to every single book I read in the last year. And before we get into all of the 90 books I read, I wanna show you guys 2 books that I did not read in 2024, but that I really wanna read in 2025. And both books are from Book of the Month, whom I love. And these are the books that I chose for January. The first book I chose is The Favorites by Lane Fargo. And this one is a sports romance, and it is so my taste. It is childhood sweethearts to champion ice skaters, which is so cute that they skate together. And then I also got A Killing Cold. I feel like this one looks like the perfect wintry mystery. And this one is about a woman who's invited to her wealthy fiance's family retreat. And then she realizes that they are hiding a terrible secret, and also that she's been there before, which that part really hooks me. And Book of the Month has very kindly sponsored today's video. They are an online book subscription box that helps readers discover new books and emerging authors. And my favorite part about Book of the Month is they have a great mix of authors that I know and love, but also authors and books I would have never found on my own. As you'll see when we get to the 90 books I read this year, I had 5 Book of the Month reads, which is a lot. And so many of those books I would have never known about on my own. And you can get your first new release hardcover with Book of the Month for just $5 with the code NEWYOU, which is such a crazy price. And I know we all probably spent so much money during the holidays, so now is a great time to save money, get some books, and I'm actually so excited to read both these books. I feel like they're both very much my taste. Now let's officially get into every single book I read this year, starting with January. The very first book that I read in 2025 was Spare by Prince Harry. I was really pleasantly surprised with how much I liked this book. I went into it thinking it was gonna be really interesting, but very unrelatable because Prince Harry is a prince. Obviously, it's not a common experience to be a member of a royal family, but I feel like Prince Harry talked about so many emotions and themes that are very universal to all people, like going through grief, wanting to be a private person, but also wanting to take control of your own story and your own narrative, trying to find out who you are. And this book goes a lot into how unrelenting and horrible the media was to Prince Harry. My only little complaint is this book does feel very one-sided, which like obviously it's one-sided because it's only Prince Harry's story from his point of view, but it did leave me wondering like what are other people's perspectives, because he does talk a lot about his family and their falling out. Okay, I'm gonna put the books I read this month right here, so it'd be like all of January will stack up. Like that'd be really satisfying. Another one a little more out of my comfort zone. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, literary fiction, and also my first DNF of the year. Literary fiction is so hit or miss for me. Honestly, mostly a miss. This book is just more of a character focused book than a really high stakes plot book. And I just didn't really bond with the characters or care about them that much. So I found it boring, but I think if you like the characters, then you will like the story. And then, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk about these books. I started the Throne of Glass series in January. This isn't all of them. It's a much longer series than this, but I finished the other books in later months, so I'll talk about the rest of the series when I got to it in the year. But I started off with Assassin's Blade, and I love this book. It's a book of short stories that's a prequel to the main series. It was a really cool way to start off the series, and I might have convinced Danny to read this book. He was very intimidated by the series size, so I was like, just read one short story from this book and then see if you want to continue. So if you're trying to convince anyone in your life to read the series, I feel like that's a good way. And then in January, I read the first 3 official books in the series: Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and Heir of Fire. This series is just so good. Our main character, Selena, is an assassin, which is so freaking cool. We just get to meet so many characters and explore so much of the world, which I love. January was a big reading month for me. I still have 1, 2, 3, 4 more books to talk about that I read in January. The next one I read is So This Is Love. This is a Cinderella retelling, and I thought this book was cute, but not like a must read. The concept is what if Cinderella never tried on the glass slipper, which I think was really fun, but overall was just more like light, cute read. One of my favorite reads of the year is Butcher and Blackbird. This is a romance between 2 serial killers. 5 stars, literally 6 out of 5 stars. I love this book so freaking much. Both are vigilante serial killers, and they make this little competition between themselves, and it's just very kind of dark and grotesque at moments, but I also really love that this book doesn't take itself too seriously. It definitely kind of leans in to the fact that it's a little absurd, dark humor. And then I read Hopeless, the last book in the Chestnut Spring series. Such an amazing series. So bittersweet to read this book because I loved it, but it did mean the series was ending. This was not my #1 in the series. My #1 in the Chestnut Spring series is Reckless. Theo Silva forever has my heart. This one's more of like an emotional one in the series, which I really liked. Both Bo and Bailey went through some more serious stuff, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. Okay, our stack is filling up. We have one more book for January, and that's Love Theoretically. I love most every book that I read by Ali Hazelwood, and I think this is officially my favorite book by her. Elsie and Jack are physics professors, so kind of like a classic STEM romance from Ali Hazelwood. And Elsie is a professional fake girlfriend on the side. And the book starts out with her fake dating Jack's brother, and Jack's our love interest. I really liked Elsie. I feel like I could really relate to a lot of the things she struggles with, like being a people pleaser. Okay, January done. And then my first book of February, oh, another Ali Hazelwood book, Bride. It's a romance between a vampire and a werewolf. Anytime I read a book that has elements or characters or like a genre that I've never read before, I always think it's so cool because I'm experiencing reading those things for the first time, and I have never read a book where the main characters were werewolves or vampires. Missed my Twilight era back in the day. I like this book had romance and politics and a little mystery in it, and also that it's a standalone because there are so many giant fantasy series, which I love, but sometimes you want to have a little fantasy moment without committing to a like 5-book series. Then I read Terms and Conditions. This is the second book in the Dreamland Billionaire series, and my favorite one in the series. It's a romance between Declan and Iris, and in order to get his inheritance, he has to get married. So he gets Iris, his assistant, to fake marry him. So we obviously have marriage of convenience, kind of like fake dating-esque with the fake marriage, and workplace romance because they also work together. Okay, a book I didn't love is Hooked. About to have a few dark romance books in a row because I was filming a video of reading a bunch of dark romance books. Dark romance, very, very hit or miss for me. This one was a miss. I did finish it. I had like such a strange experience with this book. It's a Peter Pan retelling, and I was very entertained. Like, this book is honestly like so unhinged, but I just didn't like the main character. The male love interest was too morally gray for me. I did not find him likable, and then our female main character was very like sweet, innocent, and I didn't like that dynamic. But then two dark romances I did like is The Predator and The Rebirth. These are the first two books in the Darkverse series. This is a little bit of a longer series, but I like that you could, if you want to, just read the first two books, because the first two books follow one couple and then the third book follows a different couple in this world. And it's a mafia romance. The world is very dark, but our two main characters are really good people, but they still have, you know, a little dark romance edge to them. Like in, I think, the very first scene of The Predator, our female main character is trying to kill the male main character, literally kill him. Then I read another book in the Throne of Glass series, Queen of Shadows, and I gave this one 5 stars. This is a great point in the series where there is so much going on, so many characters, so many subplots. And then for March, I read the next 2 books in the Throne of Glass series. These did move slower for me. These are my least favorite in the series. I read them over like 5 weeks, which is really rare for me, but they were just a little harder for me to get through. This one is definitely more of a like sweet, slow romance book versus the others were like fast-paced epic fantasy, so it just kind of was a big change of pace in my brain. Empire of Storms, loved the ending of this book. I think I wrote my Goodreads review, if I could just rate the ending, I would give it 5 stars, but also kind of moved slow for the first half. And then I had a DNF in March. It was Sweet Sin. This is the prequel to Promises and Pomegranates. Did not like it. It's a dark romance. Just didn't care for it, so I was like, I'm not then gonna read Promises and Pomegranates. Next up, very different direction, is The Bodyguard. We've gone from a very morally gray dark romance to a closed door, very wholesome romance. I love The Bodyguard. This is my first Catherine Tentor book. I own 2 other books by her that I haven't read, so I really want to read those 2 books by her in 2025. This one is so freaking adorable. There's no spice, and I actually really love that this book focuses so much on their emotional connection, way over a physical connection, and then she is his bodyguard and he's famous, so that's a really fun dynamic. And then I read Final Offer. This is the last book in the Dreamland Billionaire series, so done with this series. It was so good. This one is a brick. And in this book, Cal really struggles with addiction. And I thought Lauren actually did a really good job of writing serious moments and having these characters have very real, difficult struggles, but not making the book too heavy. This book is a hockey romance by Al Kennedy, part of the Briar U series. Brenna is the hockey coach's daughter, which was like a very fun dynamic and twist on like a typical hockey romance. And then I also remember that Brenna was interviewing for, I think, like an internship or a job and dealing with a lot of sexism in the interview process. Hockey romances are a lot of times more just like light, fun reads. So I enjoyed that it also had kind of a more serious topic in it as well. And then I read Rune and Rising. This is the last book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. Overall, I would say this series is a 4-star series. I never cared that much about Alina and Mal. Glad I read it, but not the first fantasy series I would recommend. Next up is A Million June. This is one of my favorite books of the year. It's by Emily Henry. It's one of the first books that she wrote, and I feel like it does not get enough hype. It's so good. It's a classic Emily Henry book in that the characters have really great banter. Reading her write magical realism, I think, was so unique, and I think she should write more magical realism because this was like one of the most unique magical realism books I've ever read. The way Emily Henry combines the magic of the world with grief was really, really cool. Next up is Twisted Hate. This is book 3 in the Twisted series. Enemies to lovers, if you can't tell from hate being in the title. I think though, out of the whole series, my favorite book is book 2, Twisted Games. Okay, moving on to April. I finished the Throne of Glass series. This is one of the biggest books I've ever read. It is over 900 pages. Honestly, I wish it was 1,000 pages just so I could say I've read a 1,000-page book. I really like this book. I still liked the beginning the best. Like the first 5 books were my favorite part of this whole series. So I think I was like a tiny bit disappointed that this wasn't my favorite because I feel like by the end you're so invested in the characters. Like the last book should be 5 stars. And I think I gave this book 4 stars. Still so good. Still such a good series. Like I wish I could reread it again. And then I filmed a video where I had librarians choose a book for me to read. Little hit or miss. 1,000 Steps Into Night. I did DNF. It's a fantasy book and I don't know, I just wasn't very invested in the main character and it wasn't 100% my taste in a fantasy book. And then I read Destination Unknown, which I did really enjoy. I believe I gave it 4 stars. It follows 2 queer characters in the 80s at the height of the AIDS epidemic. So lots of very heartbreaking moments. Has a little romance in it, but I would say more so a coming of age kind of general fiction story. I did like that book. And the author's note made me cry at the end. Project Hail Mary, another one of my favorite books of the year. I've said this so many times, but I think it's just a universal book. Like anybody's book taste, doesn't matter, you would like this book. And this was also my first sci-fi book and it has such a hooking start. Our main character wakes up alone in space with no idea how he's gotten there. It has my favorite friendship I've ever read in a book before. And then I ended the month with All the Bright Places. This book is so sad, but so good. This might be the book that I've cried the hardest in. I think the end just really caught me off guard, but I wish I could give Violet and Finch a hug so bad. Moving on to May. I just want to show you the covers, all very colorful. I feel like you can tell we're entering summer. I think my least favorite book of May was The Nanny. I gave this book 3 stars. It has a very fun premise. The main character is the nanny for a single father who is the love interest. And she also has an OnlyFans account, so like very spicy, kind of messy plot, but it was too much spice for me. And I think this is the first time I've ever had that thought. I just feel like there was way more spice than plot and I wanted more plot. And then I read Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in the Rose Hill series and I really enjoyed it. This one, also single parent trope. Our main character Ford is a billionaire, which is so attractive. He just discovers at the beginning of this book that he has a daughter he never knew about. And then our female love interest is his best friend's sister. And he ends up offering her a job, so they're working together, small town, so many good tropes. Love all of Elsie Silver's writing. Next up is Keeper of Enchanted Rooms. This book was so fun. It's very magical, has a little bit of romance, and such a fun premise. Basically, our main character moves into this house that is enchanted, and the house will not let him leave. Like he tries to walk out the front door, no, the house won't let him. So very kind of whimsical, quirky book, very cozy book. And then our female love interest works for the Boston Institute for the Keeping of Enchanted Rooms, and she is there to tame the house. Then I read The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. If I were to rank her books, number 1 would be A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, then 5 Survive, and then this book. But this one is really fun because it takes place on the set of a true crime documentary, and the ending was crazy. Oh, and how could I literally forget the craziest part of this premise? Rachel Price is missing at the beginning of this book, and then she does reappear, and I've never heard of any plot similar to that, so that's really cool. This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. I think this is my favorite Carly Fortune book. The summer vibes were immaculate. I felt like the 2 main characters' chemistry was insane, both physically and emotionally, and in very classic Carly Fortune fashion. The book takes place over multiple summers, and I like that the characters really struggled to make it work for so many summers, but I also like that they kept finding their way back to each other. And then we had Emily Henry's 2024 release. I love the premise of this book. The 2 main characters get broken up with, and then their exes start dating each other, and then they decide to move in together. So they're both heartbroken, living together, kind of just wallowing in their misery and starting to have feelings for each other. And then the 2 main characters decide to start fake dating each other to make their exes mad, which is great. Like it's so messy, so fun, and very great summer book because it takes place in summer by the beach. Then we have How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong. This is her first book, and I thought for a debut novel, I really loved it. And another really great premise, our 2 main characters are both screenwriters. They're writing a TV adaptation of our main character Helen's young adult novel, but they have a past. You'll find out what that past is later in the book, and I gave it 4 stars. I would definitely read another book by this author. And then my first Abby Jimenez book, Part of Your World, I gave it 5 stars. I loved this book. My favorite part of this book is that I thought the conflict was very realistic. Alexis is a doctor. She lives in a big city. She has a life established there. And then we have Daniel, who lives in a small town. He also has an entire life established there. So even though they were falling for each other, always in the back of the mind of the characters and myself was like, how is this ever gonna work? So I thought this book was a very good blend of realistic, tough conflict, but really fun, cute, adorable book. And then my last read in May, I also read a lot of books in May, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. My 9th book in May was Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. And I gave this book 4 stars. It was so freaking cute. I went into this book very skeptical because the entire book takes place in 24 hours. Every single chapter, it says the time. So I was like, can you really tell an entire romance in 24 hours, have a character arc, have conflict? And the answer is yes. At least Rachel and Solomon can. I swear the entire time I was like giggling, smiling. It's just so, so adorable. Moving on to this side of the book stack. June was kind of in a reading slump, so I did not read that many books in June, but the first book I read was Pride and Premeditation. This book was cute. It's a play off of Pride and Prejudice, but young adult and mystery version. 3.5 stars. I wouldn't say it's a must read. Then I read the Dance of Thieves duology. I love Cassie and Jace. I think they have really interesting backstories. Cassie was a street thief and now she is part of the Queen's Guard, and then Jace is the leader of an outlaw family and they are enemies to lovers. Literally still think about these characters. Then I read Leather and Lark. This is a sequel to Butcher and Blackbird. I like this book. I will say I liked Butcher and Blackbird more, but this one was still really fun. 4.5 stars. And we stick with the killer theme in this book. Lachlan is a contract killer and then Lark has her own murderous side, which you'll just have to read to see what that is. And then I read The Play. This is another book in the Briar U series. Hunter is the captain of the hockey team and he has sworn off relationships so he can really focus on being the best team captain that he can. So when him and Demi meet, they really develop a friendship first, and I think a friendship is such a good foundation for a relationship. Okay, moving on to July with my least favorite Ali Hazelwood book ever, Not in Love. And I'm so sad because I love every Ali Hazelwood book. This one though, I just felt like the relationship was off. The dynamic felt weird to me. It's very insta, like kind of lust and obsession at the beginning. I think I gave it 3 stars, but honestly, I would probably say like 2.5 stars. And then I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which I loved so freaking much. I'm letting my mom borrow it right now. I'm so excited to hear what she thinks about this book. Addie is cursed with both immortality and being forgotten by everybody she knows. And then she meets somebody who remembers her. And this book just had so many things that I love. Number one, the writing is beautiful. Addie lives for hundreds of years, so we get to see her experience so much history and time and parts of the world. And it's also very hard for her to survive having nobody in her life. A lot of good themes on like identity, mortality, and morality. And then we have the romance, and it was just so good. And I did cry at the end. And then I read Twisted Lies. This is the last book in the Twisted series. I really enjoyed this book. Ending, I felt a little mixed on. I love Anna Huang's men. Her men are very morally gray, and I think Anna Huang does a great job of towing the line where her characters are morally gray, mysterious, dangerous, but also likable. Love this series. I will miss it, and I do need to start another Anna Huang series. And then I read Never Lie. I think I just listened to this one as an audiobook. This isn't my #1 favorite book by her, but I did like it. It's very quick read, fun, twisty, and it has a dual timeline, so I liked it. It almost felt like 2 stories in one. This couple is looking for a house, and the house that they're looking at used to be owned by a psychiatrist who disappeared 4 years earlier, so we go back and forth between the couple story in present day and then the psychiatrist story in the past. And then moving on to August, I read Ruthless Vows. This is the second book to Divine Rivals. I like this book. I will say I like Divine Rivals more, but overall it's a great duology. It has mythology. It's much more of a quiet, slower, more vulnerable fantasy romance versus normally I'm used to reading like high stakes, enemies to lovers kind of fantasy. So very different from my normal romantasy, which was fun. Also in August, I read Daydream by Hannah Grace, and I didn't love it. I think I gave it 3 stars, like still cute, but I just got kind of bored. I feel like this book is honestly one of the best cute, healthy romance, but that's also why I got kind of bored. I just wanted higher stakes, conflict, just to be more on the edge of my seat, and I wasn't. Very opposite of Daydream. Very high stakes, enemies to lovers, edge of your seat book, powerless. And my #1 read of the year, I'm obsessed with this book. Just everything that I love in any book ever, this book has. It has a very high stakes, deadly competition. Our 2 main characters have a legit reason to be enemies. Kai, his job is to hunt down people who don't have power, and then Pei has power, so he should literally want to kill her, but he is also falling in love with her. He's also royalty. There's just so much going on in this series, and I am obsessed with it. And then I read a few mystery books for my video of reading like mystery thrillers while alone in the woods. The first one that I read in that video is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Rich people at a wedding, lots of secrets, there's a murder. I just love mystery thrillers with rich people. It almost felt like reading gossip and mystery at the same time. Then The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This one, also mystery thriller, but much more spooky, a little more gothic. Our main character works for a lady who was accused of killing her entire family. They're also kind of unraveling what really happened so many years ago with the massacre of her family. And then one of my top series of the year I started in August, The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This series is so freaking good. It has a love triangle, it has mystery, and it has some of the best plot twists I've ever read. The ending was just like twist, twist, twist. I was like jaw on the floor in this first book and for literally every book in the series. Moving on to September, After Powerless is a little novella called Powerful, and I think this might be the best novella I've ever read. It's about a side character, which at first I was like, I don't want to read about a side character, I want to read about the main characters, but it was so good. More of an emotional novella for sure, and so much was packed into just over 200 pages. I would literally read a 400-page book about this character. I want more of them. And then Reckless is the full second book that follows the main characters. I love this book. I heard a lot of people say that they thought this book wasn't necessary, just more of a fluff transition book. I disagree. This book focuses much more on the romance. I thought it was so necessary because the characters, like I said, do have strong reasons why they could hate each other. So I thought this book was really, really necessary and really transitioning them from enemy lovers to lovers. And this book ends with the most insane cliffhanger on literally the last page. I can't believe Lauren Roberts did that to us because book 3 is not coming out for some months and I am on the edge of my seat. And then I read My Killer Vacation, which I did DNF. This book, like the plot is fun, but I just thought the writing was so cringy. I couldn't do it. I could not get through it. And then I read another book in the Natural series, book 2. Oh, also, I guess I forgot to say kind of the premise of the Naturals. Basically, the main characters are teens who all have special abilities and they're recruited by the FBI to help solve murder cases. This book was my least favorite one in the series, 4.5 stars, which if my least favorite book in the series is 4.5 stars, you know it's a really good series. And then I read Wild as the Witch. I think I gave this book 3.75 stars, but I still think about this book and these characters, so I think I would up it to 4 or 4.25 stars. I just love Rachel Griffin's writing so much, and I feel like she does not get talked about enough. Her writing is so atmospheric. Our main character is a witch, and her love interest is a witch hater, so definitely enemies to lovers, but he doesn't know she's a witch for a good chunk of the book, so they don't really know they're enemies for a while. And they both work at a wildlife sanctuary, and they have to go on this like journey in the woods to find this owl, and I love how nature and magic are so intertwined in her books. A novel love story. Did not love this book, and I'm so heartbroken that I didn't love it because the premise is that the main character gets magically transported to the fictional town from her favorite romance series, which is so cool. It's just like every book lover's dream. But I don't know, it was okay to me. Pacing was weird, and then also when she gets to this fictional magical book town, she is just excited to be there. She's not really concerned by how am I in a fictional town. And then I read The Stolen Heir and The Prisoner's Throne. This is a duology. This duology takes place after the events of the Cruel Prince series. If you have not read the Cruel Prince series, you should. It is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. It's so good, and this duology follows the brother from that series, Oak. I love that the first book had so many twists and turns. I did spoil part of the ending of the book for myself on accident, but I was still so surprised despite knowing like a good chunk of the ending. And I just love this world so much. It takes place in Elfhame. It's just such a magical world. Very obsessed with the entire universe of Elfhame. And my last September read was Say You Swear. This is a college sports romance, which I'm not new to college sports romance books. I've read a lot of them, but this is the first time I've ever read a very emotional college sports romance. It progresses like, okay, typical cute romance, and then bam, twist, twist, heartbreak, twist, 5 stars. Also love the friend group in this book. Okay, September done. Moving on to our last stack and to October, and also my least favorite book of the year. This is the only book that I gave 1 star in 2024. It's called 48 Clues into the Disappearance of My Sister. I didn't like it. It was weird to me. The pacing was weird. The subject matter was weird. I didn't care about the character. Not a fan. Moving on to a much better read was The Six of Crows duology. I gave the first book 4.5 stars and the second book 5 stars. I love the characters, especially Kaz was so smart and so cunning. The characters go on a heist, which I love that that's very high stakes. Every time something went wrong and I was like, there's no way the characters are getting out of this scenario, Kaz and his genius brain would think of something. I feel like with a big friend group or cast of characters, sometimes I'm more invested in some characters more than others, but I really truly just loved all of them with my whole heart, and I feel like I will think about these characters forever. And then I read Juniper Hill. This is the second book in the Eden series. I love the Eden series. I know this series is kind of popular, but I also feel like it's not talked about enough. If you like the Chestnut Spring series, you will be obsessed with this series. It follows the Eden family. Each sibling in the Eden family gets their own book. So there's 6 books in the series. It takes place in a small town. And the first book had a little bit of mystery in it too. And so does this one as well, which really love. Like I said, love mystery romance combo books. Definitely subplot mystery, mostly romance, but would highly recommend this series. And then I read Wild Eyes. This is the second book in the Rose Hill series. And one of my favorite Elsie Silver books ever. I did not expect to love this book as much as I do. We have Skylar, who's a country singer. So one of them is famous and she rolls into small town, and who does she meet but Weston Belmont, single dad, and so attractive. Their chemistry is insane in this book. Obsessed with them. Another small town romance, but one that I didn't love, is When in Rome. I thought this book was really cute, but it was just so okay to me. It very much just felt like the most typical rom-com. Nothing new, surprising. So cute, but I didn't really feel like I needed to read it. And then in May, I read another book in the Natural series, the third book. This is my favorite book in the series. I'm letting my mom read it right now, and I'm so excited for her to get to the ending. The ending was insane. So many twists, actually crazy. Still processing the ending of that book. Oh, jumping in really quick, and it's me from a little bit in the future. I forgot to review Two Can Play that I also read in October. This is a novella by Ali Hazelwood. It's only an audiobook. I gave it 3.5 stars. Our 2 main characters work in the video game industry, have to work together in this project. So they go to this wintry retreat to try and bond their teams. So very immaculate winter settings. And I thought the video game industry was really interesting in this book. And then I got into the Christmas mood a little early in November, and I read Spectacular. This is a holiday novella that takes place after the events of the Caraval series. I love the Caraval series, so I loved being back with these characters. And what's really cool is it has illustrations throughout the whole novella. The plot, I think, was okay, but I think this is the best book that I've read to put me in the holiday spirit, just because it was so Christmassy, so magical, very immaculate holiday vibes, which the illustrations really helped with as well. Oh, we got to remove our October stack, November. And then another Christmas book that I read is My December Darling, also a little novella, but it really felt like a full book to me. Our main character is a doctor, and his name is Dr. Darling, which is so attractive. And then our female main character is a traveling nurse, so I like that they work together, workplace romance, but it did have a really realistic conflict, because it's like, is she gonna stay in town to be with him? Is she gonna move on to the next city because she is a traveling nurse? Who knows? And then I read Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. If you're a Harry Potter fan, you would love this. Tom Felton played Draco Malfoy in Harry Potter. I thought it was really fun to hear about all of his behind the scenes stories of being a child growing up on the set of Harry Potter. The second half also focuses on the rest of his life, and he struggles with addiction and some heavier things in life. And yeah, I really liked it. And then I read 2 ebooks, The Dare and Yours Truly. Yours Truly, I really liked my second Abby Jimenez book. She's just such an amazing writer. I swear I was highlighting so many quotes for this book in my Kindle. My only slight complaint with this book is the conflict annoyed me a little bit. And then The Dare, another college hockey romance, and the last book in the Briar U series. Our main character gets dared to seduce Connor Edwards, the hottest hockey player, and she does not want to. So she goes up to him and she's like, hey man, someone dared me to do this. Like, can you do me a solid and like pretend to be seduced by me? And he's like, okay, sure. They really become friends first, because she is not trying to actually date him. She's just fake dating him in order to win this dare. And then I read 3 Book of the Month books as a part of a 24-hour readathon. 2 5 stars. Heartless Hunter, so good. She is a witch and he is a witch hunter, so very much extreme enemies to lovers. And they both decide to start fake dating each other to try and get information from each other, but they don't know that they both have the same strategy. So it's very much this game of cat and mouse, and I like how we as the audience know more than the characters. Gideon Sharp, like, you shouldn't like him because he is a witch hunter, but you find out more about him and his reasoning why, and even when you're not supposed to like him, you still love him somehow. And then I read Phantasma. This one, so atmospheric, so gothic, such a unique reading experience. It's kind of similar to Caraval in that there's this magical competition and our 2 main characters are sisters, but where Caraval is young adult and a lot more whimsical, this one is dark, spicy, gothic, adult, and the competition is inspired by the different layers of hell. And I thought the way the author wrote about the costumes and what the levels in the competition were and the scenery was just so cool. I loved picturing this book in my head. And then the male love interest is a phantom, which is really fun. And then The Boyfriend, a mystery. This one was fun. Our main character starts dating this guy and he seems like the perfect guy, but at the same time, there's this news story that this man is dating and then killing his victims, and she starts to get suspicious that the person she's dating could be this killer. Okay, moving on to December. Kiss Her Once for Me. This book was really cute. It has like a fun, messy plot setup. This girl starts fake dating this guy for financial reasons, and he brings her home for Christmas to really sell it to his family that they are together. And she meets his sister at Christmas and realizes her and the sister have hooked up before. They had a one-night stand last year and basically like fell in love in one night in the past. So very messy family Christmas gathering. I thought it was really cute. My complaints were it is like insta love, and the end, I don't know, some of the characters did some questionable things. And then I read Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez and also Bad Blood. Both of these are going to be in reading vlog coming out soon. So I'll just say my opinion very briefly to not spoil that reading vlog, but I love Just for the Summer. I gave it 5 stars, obsessed with it. Ending, very shocking. And then Bad Blood, and then this book also came with a novella at the end called 12. And the last book in the Natural series, I'm so sad to have finished this series, but I really, really loved it. I would say my favorite young adult mystery series ever. And I like the novella too. It's them quite a few years later, so I like that we really get to see where their lives end up. And then I read Garnet Flats. This is the 3rd book in the Eden series. Still love this series. This one is my least favorite in the series so far. It's second chance romance, and the reason why the characters broke up in the past did bother me a little bit. And then 2 more books that are gonna be in my next reading vlog. Down the Drain by Julia Fox. This is her memoir. Love her. I really didn't know anything about her before reading this book. A lot more serious, heartbreaking book than I thought. I thought it was just gonna be more fun stories, and I wanted to give young Julia Fox a hug. First Lie Wins, a mystery. So good. One of my favorite standalone adult mysteries, and that's all I'll say. I'll say more in the reading vlog. And then my last Christmas book of the year was The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. I gave it 3.75 stars. I thought it was really cute, just more of a lighter read, but really a great premise. Our 2 main characters are mystery authors, and they get to spend Christmas in this English estate with one of the biggest mystery authors ever, and then she disappears from inside a locked room. So we have mystery authors solving a mystery and falling in love. Okay, 3 more books. Next up is The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. Another one that is cute, but more of a light read. 3.75 stars, but very fun and unique premise. Our main character applies for this matchmaking service that uses your DNA to match you with who is supposed to be like your perfect person, your soulmate, and she matches the founder of the DNA matchmaking company. But when they first meet, they don't like each other. So I thought it was really fun. The fact that they don't feel the attraction at the beginning, but the data shows they should be such a good fit for each other. And then I read The Air He Breathes. I felt so conflicted on this book. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. A fantastic book on grief, and I thought the author wrote about that topic so well. It does get very soap opera-y, very Lifetime movie-esque, so it just got a little bit like unbelievable for me by the end. But if you want a romance that really heavily deals with grief, I would really recommend it. And my last and 90th book of 2024 is The Prison Healer. I gave this book 4.25 stars. The beginning and middle do move a little slow, but then the ending was so good. Like 5-star ending, insane, heavily plot twisted ending. And the concept is really unique. Our main character is a prisoner and she works as the healer inside the prison. And then there are these deadly trials, and if you win the trials, you win your freedom, but no one has ever survived the trials before, and she enters the trials. So if you read this book and you are bored, stick with it, because I promise it is worth it for the ending. And that is all 90 books that I read this year. It's so cool to see most of them, because some were ebooks, but most of them physically here. I am so excited for another year of reading. Let me know if you guys have any books that you want to see me read in 2025, or any video ideas that you want to see me do in 2025. Thank you for spending the past year for me reading books, and cheers to another year of reading. See you guys in my next video. Bye!